Greg Ball next on Meet the Leaders. And welcome once again to Meet the Leaders. I'm your host, Terence Michos. New York State Assemblyman Greg Ball and Westchester County Legislator Mike Kaplowitz are running for New York's 40th District Senate seat, the one held recently by Vincent Leibel, who's running for Putnam County Executive. This race, many say, could determine who controls the New York State Senate come January. Mike Kaplowitz and Greg Ball, feisty race. Many say it's a close race, a tough race. People want to see it. We're bringing it into your living room right now. Thank you both for being here.
Pleasure to be here. Good to be here.
Mike, you've been in the Westchester County Legislature for years. Highest taxes in the country, people say. Democrat, same party as Andy Spano. Never heard much of a peep out of it when the taxes were going up. You say that you cut taxes in Westchester, but taxes rose more than any other place. How can you make that claim?
80% of taxes are school and local. 20% are county. I've cut $120 million. I have never once accepted a budget from Democratic County Executive without changes. I've cut about 2% of taxes, $120 million cumulative. Putnam and Dutchess counties are also top 10. The problem are not the counties, because I don't live in Putnam, I don't live in Dutchess. The problem is New York State. The problem is that the legislature in Albany has thrown down to the locals these mandates, these costs, without the money to cover it, and that's why our property taxes are out of control.
So if property taxes went up in Westchester, let's say that the county executive sent you a budget for 30%,
yep,
and you cut it down to 20%, you're saying to me that that's a tax cut?
Well, first of all, I didn't vote for all the budgets. Last year, I'll give you a story this
Just
past
most
year,
of them, Terence.
when in fact this past year taxes were proposed to go up 4.8. I worked with my colleagues to get it down to 2.9, and I had a plan to get it down to 0. They didn't vote for a 0 budget. I therefore voted against the budget. My first 3 budgets were cuts in taxes, down 0.65, down 0.1.5, down 0.5. Yeah. I have a very good track record, and we have a lot of work.
You know, at the end of the day, you're hearing exactly why people are so sick and tired of politics, because you have somebody who's running for state senate who will not take responsibility for his actions. This is the Sheldon Silver of White Plains and of Westchester County. The reality is that he was chairman of the Budget and Appropriations Committee. This man talks about saving $120 million. What he doesn't tell you is he increased spending by over $1 billion. He personally was responsible for increasing property taxes by over 42%. This is it. This is when he was budget chairman, and this is as it has gone up. And he's running for state senate saying, well, you know, it's Albany's fault. Well, he would, you know, God forbid he ever got up there, he'd go up there because of the federal unfunded mandate, say, well, I've got to increase your taxes because it's the federal government's fault, and he'd be running for Congress.
Republicans, you know, in Albany also were there. I mean, the state senate was in Republican hands 2 years back. And, of course, under Governor Pataki, the budgets went up. I know these last 2 years.
You're looking at the only Republican in the state, the first Republican in the state to stand up and ask Joe Bruno to step down 2 years before his indictment. I fought for the property tax cap. You know, my opponent is now coming to the altar of fiscal conservatism because of a political deathbed conversion. I've been fighting the fight for over 4 years. I've taken on my own party. They've spent nearly $2 million against me. I'm running against Albany's hand-picked candidate, and when the hand of Albany comes down and picks a candidate, they don't pick you for your independence or your willingness to shake things up. I will arrive in that chamber as the worst nightmare of the dysfunctional status quo in Albany. The people know it. My party knows it. I look forward to continuing.
What do you mean deathbed experience? You think he's just coming around now because it's popular?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he has a track record of increasing property taxes over 42%, spending increased by over 80%. He rubber stamped. Sure, did he vote for? He actually voted against one budget because the sales tax wasn't high enough. This is the Sheldon Silver, White Plains and Westchester.
Well, Mr. Ball is the Carl Palladino of the Hudson Valley. His integrity, his work product, his values. We're looking at, over the last 4 years when Assemblyman Ball has been up there, a work product personally where he's prime sponsor of 132 bills and 0 passed. Even a stop clock is right twice a day. This man has cost us over $670,000 in an office. He pretends to be independent, but interesting, Terence, if you look at even the mailings that have come out, you're looking at paid for by the New York State Republican Committee. He's not independent.
And Terence,
he's had a leadership bonus.
Here's one sent out by Tax Hike Mike, paid for by the New York State Democratic Committee. So what's your point, Tax Hike Mike?
The point is he is not independent. He's accepted a leadership bonus of $10,000. Costs have gone up over 6.5%.
As chairman of the Veterans Affairs Committee.
Costs have gone up over 6.5% per year of each of the last 4 years.
And I've been voting against it.
He voted for the largest tax increase in the history of New York State.
There you go again, Tax Hike Mike.
billion.
Hold on.
again.
Okay, go ahead.
Greg, I don't interrupt you. Let me finish.
You're entitled to your own opinions, but not your own facts.
Just let him finish the point. We're going to get you in. We're going to let it go.
He's voted for the largest tax increase in the history of New York. The last shred of reason to vote for
Which
Greg
tax
Ball,
increase did he?
$2.6 billion in 2008.
Can I talk to
the
that
largest tax increase.
Okay, go ahead.
And he's voted against the Star
specifically,
twice.
this is exactly, once again, there you go again. There you go again, trying to avoid your record. And meanwhile, you just
talking
went
about your record,
extremely
Greg.
personal. No, you didn't.
I'm not something personal if you're not straight.
Personal,
You talked about his
talking about
values. You talked
integrity,
about his
talking about my
values.
values. That's okay. I understand that you're in a desperate campaign at the very end, and you only have a couple weeks to try to distort my record and recreate yours. I voted for a circuit breaker, and in fact, on the record, he said that if forced, if had to decide yes or no, he would have voted for the circuit breaker.
Would have
as
voted
well.
against it and
The
said that
circuit
quite clear
breaker,
on
if
the
I can
record,
finish my
Terence.
point, moves from a property value model to an income model. By the very definition, it provides tax relief for everybody making under $250,000 a year, and affects in no way those making between $250,000 and $1 million a year. It's a circuit breaker. It provides tax relief for the vast majority of people in my district. I voted for it, and on the record, he said he's trying to have it both ways. And as far as not
Sandy
pieces
Galiff also supports the circuit breaker,
Absolutely.
right? So it's cross-party lines?
Absolutely.
Now, I want to get...
And these are pieces of legislation.
I want to just talk to you about the values issues, because he attacked you on your values. But I have heard from people that it's hard to work with you in Albany. I don't have a problem with you not getting something through the Assembly, because with the Assembly being led by the Democrats, you have to give them that. They don't let anything go through the Assembly that a Republican sponsors.
No excuses.
You can get some co-sponsors. You can get some co-sponsors, but you know that Shelley Silver doesn't let many things come through the Republicans. I'll let you address that. But it's true. People have said it's hard. You don't work across with the both
Terence,
parties.
I headed to the New York State Assembly in the super minority. Unlike where he was the chairman of budget and appropriations and increased taxes and increased spending, I'm in the super minority of the New York State Assembly. I serve as the worst nightmare, as the pain in the side to Sheldon Silver. We're talking about 1 out of 150 votes. But when we talk about bipartisanship, these are two right here, bills. This is my name here, okay, and this is signed by the governor, Elliot Spitzer, the same guy who endorsed him 4 years ago. We have over 70 pieces, if you want to keep this one, there are over 70 pieces of legislation that I have co-sponsored. One with Amy Paulin to eliminate the loophole in the human trafficking law to protect women from dangerous human trafficking. A bill I worked with Aubrey to deport criminally illegal aliens in our prisons,
Okay, so
and
you
over
have to
70 more.
Senator Greg Ball cannot work with people.
Well, hold on.
Here's a point from Mayor Schoen.
I'm going to let you do it.
Point,
I'm going to
Terence.
let you do it. If he's got the bills, how could he have no bills?
Because these are not prime sponsorship. This is you simply fill out a form and say, I want to be a multi-sponsor on that. But that you can sit back in your office and your staff has you sign it. Mayor Schoenig, in discussing Greg Ball, in terms he can't not work with people, quote, he should keep his mouth shut until he figures out how to fix Albany. Dissolving the village, he talked about dissolving Brewster, would do nothing to fix illegal immigration, the mayor said. He's done nothing for the village in all the time he's been in the Assembly, and God forbid, if he gets into the Senate, he'll do nothing for the village there. The problem and the fundamental difference between the two of us is that I can work with people. I've been productive in making the best out of bad situations. I can go to Albany and work with both parties. This gentleman cannot work with his side, cannot work with the other side, and will be a bad state senator.
You know, it's funny because he just quoted a mayor who a week ago there was an arrest in the village of Brewster because we had a local government that was issuing driver's licenses and false identification, and I'm cracking down on the illegal economy in the village of Brewster. I take that as a badge of honor. I also take it as a badge of honor when Sheldon Silver attacks me and when Joe Bruno attacks me. The reality is that as a young leader, 33 years old, I have something very unique in politics, which is I will arrive in Albany with my integrity in the sense of integrity to issues intact. I'm an outsider. My own party spent the dollars against me. In the Assembly, I went to the Assembly to fight. I'm going to the Senate not only to fight, but to lead. And I have learned that while there's a larger war and I'm willing to stand up, you also don't have to fight every single
Let me talk about the MTA tax. I know that you said you're ardently against the MTA. You will not let it come in here. I can't quibble on that. I don't know your position on it. If you say it, I believe it.
Won't pass a resolution on the tax.
Yeah, okay.
And wrote the resolution to the county board.
But when Andrea Stewart Cousins and Susie Oppenheimer came out and voted for that when they knew that they were going to be... You didn't say a word.
Of course we did. No,
you didn't.
Mike Kaplowitz did?
In fact, absolutely, and moved a resolution through the county board in opposition. No, that was a Hudson. That was a New York City centric vote with a Hudson Valley caucus, and I can bring leaders together in the Hudson Valley. When you have a mayor, a Republican mayor, saying that God forbid he gets elected, you can't bring the kind of coalition together. I can work with Republicans. I can work with Democrats. Albany's done a terrible job. It doesn't work on both sides of the aisle. I have the fierce independence, and I've shown it. I work with county executive Republican now, as I worked with county executive Democratic before, I can work to bring the real solutions.
And this afternoon, the county executive's office is joining us in a press conference because 2 weeks ago, Mike introduced a mortgage tax. He's running as a fiscal conservative, but tax hike Mike introduced a mortgage tax. This week, he introduced a garbage tax. And when it comes to the MTA payroll tax, this is who's paying for his mail. The New York State Democratic Committee out of Albany and out of New York City. If elected, God forbid, to the New York State Senate, no doubt he'd be a rubber stamp just like he was for Andy Spano, where he voted to give Andy Spano a raise. He voted for the federal low-income housing disaster. He voted for the property tax increases. But more than that, he would serve in that New York City-driven Democratic tax and spend gang, and they will not allow us to repeal the MTA payroll tax. For that reason alone, we do not need to tell the New York City gang, tax and spending crew up in Albany, you know, you're doing such a good job, let us give you another
What can
vote.
you do to get him to change that MTA thing, like?
Well, within the caucus, I'm going to be able to get that tax out. We brought in the MTA leadership.
No one else, Tom Morahan, nobody could get it
because,
out.
and Mr. Ball in the Assembly was unsuccessful as well.
I was successful in getting the forensic counting of the MTA.
If you like what you have, and an election is a job interview. I say to the constituents, if you like the way New York State's been working for the last 4 years, you have your incumbent. He is an incumbent state legislator. If you want something to get done, and the proof is that in the trenches, I and other colleagues throughout Westchester and other counties realize we can cut what we can cut. But where 80% is mandated by the state, we need mandate relief on Medicaid, we need new pension system. I independently stood up to the unions, stood up to my party, and they're standing out there for taxpayers to try to reform pensions.
Who did you stand up to your party? Where did you
I did
stand
not
up
take
to?
the working families line, for example, and I'm trying to save over $2.2 billion over the next 3 years.
Why did you not take the working families?
Because they do not want pension reform. I recognize that we need to save over $2 billion. More than that, I am not going to raise taxes. They want us to raise taxes.
Terence,
we have to budget.
This is just
cut the budget.
There you go again, tax hike, Mike.
I did not
take
the line.
Whole thing. He
How about
actually
we don't
went
play
after
in
the
the
line.
kindergarten
He actually filled out a
non-slogans in people's
questionnaire
names.
to go after the working families line, and then when he didn't get it, it's just like
I didn't hear that because you
he
guys
actually went after the working families line, so liberal, so extreme that Cuomo initially wouldn't go after it. Now he's trying to say because he didn't get it, well, you know, I wasn't going after it. Those are the facts. And at the end of the day, he voted to increase. He voted to give Andy Spano a pay increase. Bill Ryan, Boss Ryan, who was under ethics investigation, he increases his stipends by over $200,000. He gave the Board of Elections commissioners a $24,000 raise and called it fair and reasonable. He had a property tax increase of over 15%.
I voted against the 2 pay raises that the county had for legislators.
During re-election.
Not at all.
When
During
he
the
was
last
up
12
for
years.
re-election.
Not at all.
He voted for it, and then he voted against it because of the re-election.
I'd love to answer the question. He's entitled to his opinion. He's not entitled to his facts. Voted against pay raises. So angered my leadership, I had my office cut in half. They voted to take away my vice chairmanship. I do not take a cell phone. He takes a cell phone.
That is an absolute lie. I do not
have reimbursements for cars.
That's a lie.
I'll let you respond.
I have shown my fierce independence. And when I did not go and did not get and did not want and chose not to take the working families line and went to them and said, I do not want your line, it's because they wanted increased taxes. We have to do this budget balancing on the expense side. I have a history of doing that.
So what's the fact? Did you get the line or did you not want the line?
I did not want the line, did not get the line, did not want the line.
Okay,
I said to them, I'm a
you shouldn't have filled out the questionnaire. At the end of it, let's just go through. Okay, in 2008, tax hike Mike called for salary hikes for 19 the highest paid county employees, fair and reasonable. But now he says he's for pension reform. In 2007, he rubber stamped $200,000 in stipends for board committee chairs, doubling stipend for county board chairman Bill Ryan, $75,000 on top of $49,000. In 2007. He rubber stamped Andy Spano's $1.77 billion budget, increasing property taxes. The Journal News and the New York State Comptroller's
Terence,
office.
He's entitled to his opinion.
And then in 2006,
that's absolutely not true, Terence. I'd like to read the record if you could.
I want you to just listen to me for a second, both of you. None of us here can get to all the minutiae here. I want you to get your points out so everyone can hear it. They got to go back and check.
Finish that point.
The bottom 10 seconds.
The bottom line is that Westchester County is the highest tax county in the United States of America and in the galaxy. As budget chairman, he was in a position to cut taxes and decrease spending. He did the reverse.
I was budget chairman for 4 of the 12 years. 2.5% was the tax increase, well below cost of living. It's New York State's problem. And as a certified financial planner reading 6,000 budget lines, I want to go to Albany. I can do a better job of controlling state budget. We're running for state legislature, not for the county level.
Let me talk to you about ethics reform. Bill Ryan, I know there was some questions about I had him on here. Good guy, worked hard, but also did some things that he shouldn't be doing.
Absolutely.
He said you didn't mention a word. Respond.
Didn't mention a word. I was the first man. I had my office cut in half. Put a stool right down the middle of it and a wall down the middle of it. No, I was on your show. We were talking anything about it.
But after it happened.
Absolutely not. During the time, if you read the clippings, I was the one in opposition too. Go to Gannett and you'll see it day after day. I was the one that they voted to try to get me out of vice chairmanship. No, Terence, the record's quite clear. I stood up for what was right. What Bill was trying to do was jam things down people's throats, and that was wrong. And I'll do the same in my caucus, in my conference up in Albany. The record is quite clear. I'm fiercely independent. I've supported Rob Astorino when he's right. I opposed Andy Spano when he's wrong, and I found ways to cut overtime, cars, personnel, healthcare costs.
I got to ask you a question. I don't want you to respond.
Absolutely.
How have you worked with people in Albany? I know you've run.
Look at the pieces of legislation that I had passed. Okay, that you take a look at it. Bipartisan bills that we have put on the floor of the Assembly. Over 70 pieces of legislation. Autism insurance bill, statewide autism insurance bill that the insurance lobby didn't want to get done. We got that done this year. A bill to protect children with eosinophilic disease. I have a young girl named Hannah Devane in my district. That was eventually introduced by a majority member. My combat veterans tuition.
The autism bill wasn't his bill. His bill got stuck in committee and never came out.
But you know what happens in committee, Mike.
We're in a no-excuse world. No, Bob Costelli, who's an assemblyman south of since February, has passed more bills than this gentleman has passed in the 4 years. He cannot. He can't work with people. The problem is it can get done. He can't do it. He's not independent, and he can't accomplish anything. We go to his office twice, working hours 10 to 2, and he's not even there.
And you're supposed to be in your office at the exact same time.
And I was exactly
in your office. How could he be in both places at once?
You're he costs us money and doesn't accomplish
during the workday. He's in front of my office in Putnam County, and my office is part-time staff. Meanwhile, he should be down in Westchester County fighting against the over $1 billion in spending that he's responsible for, and the over 42% in property taxes at the end of the day. When you look at pieces of legislation, he's talking about local bills and tax increases that Republicans have passed. I fought against tax increases. I want to finish this final.
I'll do it in 5 seconds.
If passing tax increases and increasing government spending is a measure of success, this is the most successful man in the Hudson Valley.
I'm going to go to environmental issues. I know that's something you're strong on. I know those things have taken a lower tier now because people are concerned about their, eating, paying taxes, things like that. In Albany, what is it that you can do that's effective in terms of the environment, but that will also not constrict and kill businesses and small businesses and things like that?
As a small business owner, as a certified financial planner, I have a career for 26 years. I recognize investment is critical. Good economic policy is good environmental policy and vice versa. There are things like the Environmental Protection Fund where we can, with no new taxes, be able to invest in our lake communities, bring back home values. We can create a new Tappan Zee Bridge, which is both good for construction, mass transit, do it environmentally correct, and get people out of their cars and spur the economy and create 200,000 jobs.
And small businesses, how are you going to protect them? They're leaving like crazy.
Absolutely.
And the health care bill at the federal level, I know it's complicated.
I know as a small business owner. By the way, of the two of us, I pay the MTA tax. I know how onerous that is. I know how to create jobs. I've done it. What we need are credits and permanent credits to hire new employees.
Go ahead. Small business and environment. How do those
Just so people know, 4 years before the Obama Pelosi healthcare debacle, Tax Hike Mike introduced a very similar scheme at the county level called the Fair Share Act that would have put small businesses out of business. New York State has to get out of the way. We have to repeal the MTA payroll tax. We have to, a lot of politicians think that they are just so powerful. He talks about a temporary tax credit. No small business owner in their right mind is going to hire somebody for a $5,000 temporary tax credit. We have to repeal the MTA payroll tax, repeal the inhospitable environment to all small business owners. As they come to my door every single day, they're not asking for government to do something for them. They're asking government to get out of their way.
How can you help them do that?
Cut taxes on small business owners, create enterprise zones around the entire state, repeal the MTA payroll tax, and provide real incentives for small business owners who hire individuals who are currently on unemployment. You save in both ways. And the last thing we should be doing is introducing new tax increases. He's running as a fiscal conservative. Last week he introduced a mortgage tax, a real estate transfer tax that'll kill our community after accepting thousands of dollars from the environmental lobby. I have a
First of all, even look at his body language and his lexicon. This is like a kindergartner. When you come up with slogans, remember that, I know you are, but what am I? Ladies and gentlemen, when you go to the New York State Senate, you're working with august, wise people who are fighting for their districts. Some people have not done a good job.
Criminals,
others have. Some of them are.
Yes,
and what you need to do is work with people. When you, come up with nicknames and you malign them, you're treating them like they're in third grade.
Well, I mean, Chuck Schumer and a lot of those guys do those things they call
is a rally this Saturday.
opinion?
Dogs against Kaplowitz, okay? He's gone through the two-legged, he's up to the four-legged. You need to understand that other legislators are representing their district. This is serious business. Nobody cares about the nicknames that he comes up with or our banter.
Okay.
What they care about are solutions to real problems.
Capping property taxes, freezing school taxes for seniors, eliminating the unfunded mandates, and moving away from a property value model to an income model. God bless you for finding your way to the altar of fiscal conservatism.
I've been
too little, too late,
you,
and the
Mr.
people
Ball.
are being taxed out of their homes. Seniors are being taxed out of the communities. Young families are hamsters in a wheel. Those are the things that matter.
Next issue. On the issue of abortion, where do you stand on that?
I do not, while I'm personally pro-life, I do not support overturning Roe versus Wade. That's one area where this campaign has attacked me and lied about my record from the very beginning.
So tell us your record and tell me on record.
We have got to work together as a community to avoid the extremes on this issue. First, in the New York State Senate, I'm going to fight to cap property taxes, free school tax for seniors, eliminate the avalanche of unfunded mandates, and I am not going to be active on the extremes of any issue, especially social issues.
Where do you stand on that? That's what I just want to get on the issue of abortion. Do you support the state law where it's at? Do you support, where do you stand?
There's a current law called the RAP Bill, which would force Catholic hospitals to perform abortions. I do not support extreme measures like that, but at the exact same time, I do not support overturning Roe versus Wade. Where you will see me cast votes is to make life an easier choice.
That's your position. That's where most of the New York State is anyway.
That's exactly.
What's your position on that?
I am absolutely 100% pro-choice. This gentleman did not answer that question. In his literature to the Republican wing, when he ran in the primary, he bragged and said, I am 100% pro-life. That's a fine position if that's your position. He is standing here not answering. On the environment, he didn't answer the question. Okay. On the issues of pro-life and value. Carl Palladino is also 100% pro-life.
I have a very
This gentleman is the Carl Palladino.
And I have
very clear distinction.
He's got to tell me, though, just on this.
I am a 100% pro-choice.
I'm going to get to that.
I do not believe that government belongs in the bedroom and a woman makes a decision for herself.
I will talk to you about that in a second. He's saying that you're this. I want him to say what his position is in relation to Carl Palladino.
Carl Palladino. First, I was the first Republican to come out and disagree with Carl Palladino's offensive comments to the point where I wasn't invited to a local.
On the gay rights issue?
Absolutely.
Not the first.
And I was the first Republican to come out and do that. Yes, I was, Tax Hike Mike. And not only that, on the issue of abortion, he agrees with complete pro-life position, even in the instances of rape, incest, and life of the mother, which I absolutely disagree with Carl Palladino on that as well.
Do you believe in abortions up to 9 months?
I believe I'm a 100% pro-choice that a woman and her doctor have the right to choose, and the Supreme Court in Roe v. Wade says that the states in the last trimester have the right to legislate, and we need to memorialize Roe v. Wade in New York State. Yes, I do believe.
Up to 9 months.
I believe that a woman has the right, her and her doctor, for medical necessity purposes, to choose what is best for her and for her life and her family. And in fact, a pro-life position 100% in rape and incest does not allow for real life.
He says he doesn't support that.
That's not my position.
Then why does he say he's 100%?
I can't answer that. I'm just doing what you guys are telling me.
He has said, Terence, that he is 110%, just said it 3 weeks ago, behind Carl Palladino. He said, I'm behind Carl Palladino, and this is after the homophobic and the racist emails that come out, Terence.
Look, I mean,
I can't get into Carl Palladino and him. 100%. I just want to up to 9 months.
Sir, I'm 100% pro-choice. It is not government's role to get into the bedroom.
So the reality is that the only extremist on this stage is my opponent, and people need to realize very clearly that there's a bill in the New York State Legislature that he just quoted talking about memorializing that will force Catholic hospitals to perform even late-term abortions. It would force Catholic hospitals to shut their doors. It's called the RAP Bill. Look it up. The only extremist on this stage is my opponent. I will be talking about taxes, capping taxes, freezing school taxes for seniors, these social issues. 2 million people have not left the state because of gun control. 2 million people have not left the state because of gay marriage. 2 million people in the state have not left the state because of abortion. 2 million people have left the state because we can't afford
You sent a press release out to me recently saying that Mike Kaplowitz is, and these were your words, involved in environmental racism for his...
That's not my quote. It has been the sewer diversion project.
Go ahead, tell me what that's
the sewer diversion project on Peekskill, which is a city that is just trying to, a lot of blue-collar people are trying to get, up by their bootstraps, get that city back in line. He has a sewer diversion project that will force the sewage from his hometown into Peekskill in Cortland. Doesn't care about smell, doesn't care about health, doesn't care about the quality of the water. In fact, elected officials in Peekskill and Cortland that are of his political persuasion won't even stand next to him because of that. And now he has a tax diversion scheme. Forget about the sewage diversion scheme. He now has a tax diversion scheme that'll force his problems onto the backs of Yorktown, Peekskill, and Cortland. All you have to do is Google search it. It's out there.
Mike Kaplowitz is trying to protect the drinking water for the millions of New Yorkers.
For so much.
Mike Kaplowitz killed the sewage diversion from Yorktown to Peekskill because it wasn't fair, it wasn't right, it wasn't happening. We had a small project this past summer because Somers has to build affordable housing, and the city DEP said there's no place to put the sewage. This plant has capacity, but State Senator Mike Kaplowitz will continue to work with the communities to come up with a regional solution. Demagoguing and talking about dumping.
People in your own party upset?
No, they're standing with me. Drew Claxton and Mary Foster endorsed me, stood with me the other day, and support me because they recognize that this is a balance and that we need to protect Peekskill and we need to protect their residents.
Now he's actually saying that he killed the sewer diversion project. I mean, at the end of it, this is exactly why people don't even watch politics anymore, because you don't know who to believe. He is the architect of both the federal low-income housing disaster and the Peekskill sewer diversion project that'll also kill Cortland. He knows it, and now he's a few weeks before an election trying to change his record.
Okay.
Terence, that's not true. The low-income housing project was a mess that the county executive created, 1,100 other communities,
there you go again,
and we in Westchester County were forced to either spend $550 million and risk those dollars or invest $60 million in affordable housing.
We have about 30 seconds to closing statements. Go ahead and respond.
On this particular issue, yeah, I mean, look, we have a $60 million federal affordable housing, but what we have here, and there he goes again, is a track record. A track record where it's not, he says it's not his fault he increased taxes, it's the unfunded mandates from the state level. If he were ever at the state level, he'd be increasing taxes there and say, it's the unfunded mandates at the federal level. And when it comes to the federal affordable housing debacle, Northern Westchester needed a voice. He was silent, he rubber stamped it, it's going to cost us $60 million and more every single year.
Saved $550 million to potentially to the taxpayers of Westchester County.
Okay, just obviously I appreciate you guys being forceful on your issues, standing up for yourselves. We got to go figure out, look at some of these things, because Mr. and Mrs. Front Porch and even I can't get into the bottom of these things right now. Anyway, we flipped a coin, and both candidates, passionate. Race is real close now, according to most of the polls, so they're going to speak directly to you. We flipped a coin. Mr. Kaplowitz is going to talk to you first about why he wants you to vote for him for this 40th Senate race in November. Go ahead, Mr. Kaplowitz.
An election is a job interview. I'm Mike Kaplowitz, running for New York State Senate, small business owner, family man, live in Somers with my wife and 2 daughters. They're going to college. I'm a fierce independent. I'm fiercely fiscally conservative. I've reviewed the county budget and will do the same at the state level. Cut spending, cut taxes. I've suffered from my own party when, in fact, they did not do so. I can be your advocate, and I can be a New York State Senator. My opponent has been up there 4 years. If you like the job that's been done, vote for him again. 0 for 132 bills. Spending has gone on, and he's had no impact. Vote for me because I can make a positive difference. This gentleman has been the incumbent in the most dysfunctional legislature in America. He organically cannot work with people. I can work with people, Republicans, Democrats. I've proven it in my record, and I can be the successful state senator to make New York work. Thank you very much.
Mr. Ball, right to the people.
Well, we now know what Tax Hike Mike stands for. He is running on the I Hate Greg Ball platform, but at the end of the day, he's not only running for something, he's running away from a record. This is his record. The reality is that the taxpayers of Westchester County are now the highest tax county in the United States of America, $11 billion. And when he was chairman, this is when he became chairman, spending increased, it didn't increase. The reality is that when he was voting for taxes and big spending, I was voting against him. I'm glad he's having a deathbed political conversion, but it's too little too late. If you're a blue-collar family like mine, if you have dirt under your fingernails and your back is sore, I'm asking that you work with me. Let's go to Albany. Let's get this state back on track. We can talk about the social issues all day long, but the only thing that matters is making sure that this great state, once great state, goes back to being the Empire State, because today it's the vampire state, sucking the lifeblood out of your household, your community, our small business owners. If you'll help me out and we work together and I arrive in that state Senate chamber, I will represent the greatest threat to the dysfunctional status quo that state Senate chamber has ever seen. Let's work together, and I look forward to seeing you around town.
Mr. Kaplowitz, Mr. Ball, very articulate, very passionate. I really appreciate you being on here. Tough guys. It's great. Good campaign, and I really appreciate you being on here and meet the leaders.
Thank you, Terence.
And we're going to keep following this race.
Excellent.
Awesome.
And all of you got to do one thing. You have to find out what's going on in the 40th District Senate race, and you got to check the facts, and you got to vote. I'm Terence Michos. For everybody here at Meet the Leaders, have a great night.